The United States has just announced sweeping new sanctions targeting Russia's oil sector, escalating its economic pressure campaign to an unprecedented level. This move signals a dramatic shift in Washington's approach as it seeks to leverage economic tools to influence global affairs and confront Moscow's actions on the world stage. These measures go beyond previous efforts, aiming to cripple the revenue streams that fund the Kremlin's government and military. By striking at the heart of Russia's energy industry, the U.S. hopes to weaken the financial backbone that supports not only domestic programs, but also Russia's military ambitions abroad. The sanctions target not only state-owned giants like Rosneft and Gazprom Neft, but also the vast global network of companies and intermediaries that facilitate the export of Russian crude oil. This includes shipping firms, insurers, and financial institutions that play a role in moving Russian energy to international markets. For the first time, the U.S. is pursuing the entire supply chain, making it risky for anyone, anywhere, to do business with Russian energy. The message is clear. Involvement at any stage, from extraction to transportation, now carries significant consequences. This is the most significant tightening of restrictions on Russia in years, a direct challenge to Moscow's economic lifeblood. The Kremlin now faces mounting pressure as its primary source of hard currency comes under threat, raising questions about how it will respond. Oil and gas exports are central to Russia's budget. By targeting them, Washington hopes to force a change in the Kremlin's strategy. The stakes are high, as any disruption could ripple through Russia's economy and beyond, affecting global energy flows. The world is watching closely. Will these sanctions achieve their intended goals? Or will they trigger greater instability in energy markets and international relations? Allies and rivals alike are weighing the potential fallout. With global energy demand at record highs, the timing of these sanctions adds a new layer of uncertainty to already jittery markets. Consumers and businesses worldwide are bracing for possible price spikes and supply disruptions. The U.S. claims it structured the sanctions to minimize collateral damage. But, in a deeply connected world, the consequences are hard to contain. Even countries not directly involved could feel the impact through higher costs and economic volatility. This is a high-stakes test of American economic power and its ability to shape global events. The outcome will not only affect Russia and the U.S., but could redefine the rules of economic warfare for years to come. Oil revenue is the backbone of the Russian state, funding everything from social programs to military campaigns. State-owned giants like Rosneft act as arms of the Kremlin, with profits filling budget gaps and supporting defense spending. This dependency is both Russia's strength and its Achilles heel. Disrupting oil revenue directly impacts Moscow's ability to pay soldiers and sustain its military. The new sanctions are a precision strike aiming to sever the link between oil wealth and military power. Russia has tried to diversify its economy, but oil remains king, leaving it exposed to this kind of economic warfare. If the sanctions succeed, Russia could face a severe budget crisis, forcing tough choices between military ambitions and domestic stability. The U.S. strategy is to weaken Russia financially, limiting its military capabilities over time. These sanctions are designed to apply steady pressure, not cause immediate collapse, forcing Moscow to choose between war and welfare. Primary sanctions cut Russian entities off from the U.S. economy and dollar transactions. The real power lies in secondary sanctions, threatening foreign companies with exclusion from the U.S. market if they deal with Russian oil. This creates a chilling effect. Most global banks and shippers will avoid Russian oil to protect their U.S. access. The goal is to make Russian oil toxic in the global marketplace, shrinking Moscow's revenues. Success depends on international cooperation and whether major powers, like China and India, comply. If the world aligns with Washington, Russia's financial architecture could unravel. The U.S. has made a bold move on the global chessboard. Russia's response was swift, condemning the sanctions as economic aggression and vowing resilience. Behind the rhetoric, Moscow is urgently seeking new buyers, turning to India and China as lifelines. Russian officials are offering steep discounts to entice these energy-hungry nations. The pitch: Russia is a reliable supplier while the West uses energy as a weapon. Moscow is also accelerating efforts to build alternative financial systems, promoting trade in rubles, yuan, and rupees. The goal: create a sanctions-proof bloc and reduce dependence on the US dollar. But relying on a few buyers gives China and India leverage to demand even lower prices. Rerouting oil to Asia requires costly infrastructure changes, making this pivot a move of necessity, not choice. Russia's economic survival now hinges on its ability to replace lost Western customers. The eastward turn is a gamble with high stakes and uncertain rewards. For India and China, cheap Russian oil is tempting, but the risk of U.S. secondary sanctions is real. Both nations are massive importers. Discounted crude could boost growth and ease inflation, but any company facilitating sanctioned Russian oil risks losing access to the U.S. financial system. Beijing weighs the strategic benefits of supporting Russia against the costs of angering Washington. China may let some state firms buy Russian oil, but will tread carefully to avoid U.S. retaliation. India faces an even tighter balancing act. Valuing ties with both Russia and the U.S. Indian leaders will seek creative ways to keep buying Russian oil, perhaps through non-dollar trades, while reassuring Washington. Both countries are walking a diplomatic tightrope, trying to secure energy without triggering U.S. penalties. Their decisions will shape the future of global energy flows. It's a high-wire act with no safety net. The real test of these sanctions lies in their enforcement, especially when it comes to secondary sanctions imposed on non-U.S. firms and entities. These measures are designed to extend the reach of U.S. policy far beyond its borders, compelling foreign companies to comply or face serious consequences. If the U.S. enforces these sanctions strictly and consistently, global banks, insurers, and shipping companies will likely avoid any dealings with Russian oil. This could effectively paralyze much of the international trade in Russian energy, sending shockwaves through global markets and making it extremely difficult for Russia to find buyers or transport its oil. However, if major countries like China and India choose to ignore the threat of secondary sanctions, the entire strategy could begin to unravel. This defiance could split the world into rival energy blocs, with some nations continuing to trade with Russia, while others fall in line with U.S. policy, deepening global divisions. The U.S. faces a delicate balancing act, punishing violators without alienating key allies. For example, targeting a major Indian or Turkish bank for sanctions violations could seriously strain diplomatic and economic relations, potentially undermining broader strategic partnerships. This gray area of uncertainty leads many companies to err on the side of caution. Fearing the risk of costly penalties, they often choose to overcomply, avoiding all Russian business, even when it might technically be allowed under the rules. The fear of accidental violations, and the potential for severe financial or reputational damage, is often a stronger deterrent than the written rules themselves. Companies invest heavily in compliance, legal advice, and internal controls to avoid even the appearance of wrongdoing. Ultimately, the outcome depends on a complex global calculus. Are the potential profits from Russian oil truly worth the risk of U.S. penalties, lost business, and damaged reputations? Each company must weigh these factors carefully. If most companies and financial institutions choose caution, the sanctions will have real bite, significantly restricting Russia's ability to export oil and access global markets. But if enough players decide to test the limits, American leverage and the effectiveness of its sanctions could be challenged as never before, with unpredictable consequences for the global economy. The world is watching closely to see who blinks first in this high-stakes contest of economic power and political will. The announcement of new sanctions sent oil prices surging almost instantly, as markets reacted to the growing fears of major supply disruptions from one of the world's top oil producers. The sudden spike in prices reflects just how sensitive global energy markets are to geopolitical shocks, especially when they involve a country as significant as Russia. Markets are now on edge, with investors and analysts alike asking, will Russian oil really be taken offline, and if so, for how long? The uncertainty is fueling volatility across financial markets worldwide. The big question is whether other oil-producing nations can step in to fill the gap left by Russian exports. OPEC and its allies are under intense pressure to ramp up production, but capacity constraints and political considerations make this a complex challenge. Meanwhile, rising energy prices are fueling global inflation, driving up costs for everything from transportation to food, and threatening to tip already vulnerable economies into recession. Households and businesses everywhere are feeling the pinch. In response, central banks may be forced to raise interest rates to combat inflation, even if it means slowing economic growth further. This delicate balancing act adds another layer of uncertainty to the outlook. The U.S. is likely urging other oil producers to boost output, and may consider tapping into strategic reserves to stabilize prices. But these measures are only short-term fixes and cannot address the underlying supply issues. If Russian exports are cut off for an extended period, the world could face a structural supply deficit, fundamentally altering the balance of the global oil market and potentially leading to prolonged high prices. In the coming weeks, markets will closely watch tanker movements, OPEC+ decisions, and the actions of major importers like China and India, all of which could influence the direction of oil prices and global trade flows. The initial price spike is just the beginning. Profound uncertainty now hangs over the global economy, with ripple effects likely to be felt for months, if not years, to come. Geopolitical maneuvers are having immediate, real-world impacts on household budgets, corporate balance sheets, and the everyday cost of living for millions of people around the world. The world economy has entered a new, unpredictable phase, where energy security and economic stability are more intertwined and more fragile than ever before. The US sanctions have exposed deep global divisions. Europe supports pressuring Russia but fears an energy crisis and soaring costs for its citizens. China denounces the sanctions as illegal and accuses Washington of using financial power to bully rivals. Chinese officials see an opportunity to secure cheap energy and promote a multipolar world. Many developing nations are more worried about economic fallout than geopolitics, fearing higher oil prices will worsen debt and inflation. Some see themselves as bystanders caught in a great power struggle. The sanctions could either demonstrate US economic strength or accelerate a shift toward a fragmented, multipolar world. The stakes go beyond oil. They threaten the very structure of the global order. The coming months will reshape alliances and economic relationships for years to come.